Welcome to my channel, Lobby 22. Hold on because it's going to be something incredible. Michael Reed, a successful businessman from Seattle, is planning a romantic surprise for his 20th wedding anniversary but is faced with a stunning betrayal. His wife Emily and daughter Sophie propose an open marriage because Emily is in love with a charismatic restaurateur, Nick. Hiding his rage, Michael agrees, but on his own terms, signing a harsh post-nup agreement. His revenge is cold and calculated. He starts dating Nick's daughter, Kate, and stops supporting Sophie financially. Tensions rise when Emily begs him to take it all back, but Michael doesn't back down. Will his revenge destroy his family or give them a chance for a new beginning? This tale of betrayal, cunning, and moral lessons keeps you on your toes until the very last minute. Find out how Emily's choices lead to shocking consequences, and Michael finds unexpected love in the midst of chaos. Is revenge worth the price? Watch to the end to find out. Michael Reed, a 45-year-old tech entrepreneur, stood at the helm of a cybersecurity empire in Seattle, a city buzzing with innovation and rain-soaked streets. His company, Reed Tech, was a fortress built from late nights and relentless ambition, much like his father, Thomas Reed, an ex-Marine who preached discipline over emotion. Michael absorbed those lessons, forging a life of control and precision. He never believed in destiny, not until August 15, 2025, when the foundation of his world cracked open. That morning, the sun blazed over Puget Sound, casting a golden sheen across Michael's waterfront home in Madison Park. He closed a multi-million-dollar deal with a defense contractor, his mind already drifting to surprising his wife, Emily, before their 20th wedding anniversary. They'd married young, at 23 and 21, when Emily's laughter could light up a room. Her warmth had softened Michael's edges, and their daughter, Sophie, now a 21-year-old college junior, was the center of their world. Or so he thought. Driving home early, Michael pictured a weekend getaway, maybe Whidbey Island, somewhere quiet to rekindle the spark. He pulled into the driveway, the crunch of gravel under his Tesla a familiar comfort. Inside, the house smelled of coffee and lavender, but the air felt heavy, charged with something unspoken. In the kitchen, Emily stood by the quartz counter, her auburn hair pulled back tightly. Sophie sat at the oak table, her phone idle for once, her eyes flickering with an odd mix of defiance and excitement. "Hey," Michael said, setting his briefcase down with a casual thud. "What's going on?" His voice carried the easy confidence of a man used to command, but Emily's posture, rigid, almost rehearsed, set off a faint alarm in his gut. "Michael, please sit," Emily said, her voice soft but deliberate, like she'd practiced the words. She was 43, still striking, but her eyes avoided his. Sophie leaned forward, her blonde ponytail bobbing. "Dad, we need to talk." Michael slid into a chair, resting his elbows on the table, his reservist training kicking in. Stay calm, assess, respond. "All right," he said, glancing between them. "I'm listening." Emily inhaled deeply, her fingers gripping the counter's edge. "We're 5 days from our 20th anniversary, Michael. These years, they've been good, mostly. But I've been thinking about what I want, what I need. I want to explore something new. An open marriage." The words hit like a sucker punch, but Michael's face remained a mask. His mind raced, replaying every late-night conversation, every missed dinner, searching for clues he'd overlooked. "An open marriage," he repeated, voice flat. "You're saying you want to see other people?" Sophie jumped in, her tone almost gleeful. "It's not a big deal, Dad. Everyone's doing it. Modern couples don't cling to old rules. It's about trust, not possession." Her words dripped with the certainty of youth, as if she'd read a blog post and declared herself an expert. Michael turned to Emily, his gaze steady. "Is this what you want? Or is there already someone?" The question hung in the air, sharp and heavy. Emily's lips parted, then closed. She nodded barely. "It's Nick Clayton. He owns Clayton's Bistro on Pike Street." Nick Clayton. Michael knew him, mid-40s, slick, with a smile that charmed investors and customers alike. Michael had hosted clients at his upscale restaurant, shaking Nick's hand, oblivious to the man eyeing his wife. The betrayal twisted in his chest, but he leaned back, tapping his fingers on the table, an old habit from his reservist days to keep his hands steady. "So, you're already involved with him," Michael said, not a question. Emily's eyes flicked to the floor. "We've been talking. It's new. But I want this, Michael. I need something different." Sophie grinned, oblivious to the storm brewing in her father. "It's cool, Dad. You can date too. Physical stuff doesn't matter if you love each other. You just need to, trust." The word trust was a spark to kindling. Michael's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed even. "Trust, right? So, you're telling me every couple's doing this? Opening their marriages, no big deal?" "Totally," Sophie said, nodding like she was teaching a child. You're just old school. Love's about freedom now. Michael's stomach burned, a quiet rage simmering beneath his calm exterior. He turned to Emily. And you're bored with me. That's what this is? 20 years and you're done. Emily bit her lip, her voice softer now. I'm not done. I feel stuck. I want to feel alive again. Nick makes me feel that way. The confession landed like a blade. Michael wanted to stand, to walk out, to shatter something. But he stayed, rooted, his military training holding him together. Count, breathe, don't break. All right, he said at last, his voice low. You want an open marriage? I'm in. But we do it my way. Emily's eyes widened, a flicker of surprise. Sophie smirked as if she'd won a game. Really? You're cool with it? On one condition, Michael said, his gaze locking on to both of them. This house, my business, my assets, they're mine, thanks to the prenup we signed when we married. You want your freedom? Fine. But I set the rules here. If you don't like them, you can find another place to live. Sophie laughed, dismissive. Dad, come on. The house is half Mom's, legally. Emily held up a hand, her voice quiet but firm. Sophie, stop. He's right. The prenup gives him the house. Her eyes met Michael's, a mix of defiance and unease. She hadn't expected this. Michael stood, his chair scraping the floor. I'll have my lawyer draw up a postnup. We'll lay out the terms, clear, fair, binding. You want to play this game? We play by my rules. He walked to the sink, letting the silence stretch, their confidence faltering. That evening, Michael overheard them in the kitchen. Sophie whispered, he's bluffing, Mom. He'd never kick you out. You're his whole world. Emily's voice was less certain. You don't know your father, Sophie. He's different when pushed. You didn't see him in his reservist days. He can be ruthless. Michael retreated upstairs, the echo of Emily's words lingering. Ruthless. Maybe he was. In his reservist training, he'd learned to compartmentalize, to act without hesitation. He'd buried that part of himself under suits and boardroom deals, but now it stirred, cold and calculating. They'd thrown down a gauntlet and he wasn't the type to back away. The next morning, Michael met David Lang, his lawyer since their Stanford days, at a downtown coffee shop. David, with his sharp suits and sharper mind, grinned over his espresso. An open marriage? Emily's got nerve. Why not just divorce her? Too easy, Michael said, his voice low. I want them to feel the weight of this. I want control. He slid a notepad across the table, detailing his terms. No alimony if Emily divorced during the open marriage, the house and business untouchable, no partners allowed in his home, monthly health checks, and Emily covering her own dating expenses. David whistled. You're going for blood, Mike. This postnup's a steel trap. He leaned back, smirking. Your old man would be proud. Michael thought of Thomas, his father's unyielding face. It's not about pride. It's about boundaries. They want freedom? They'll get it on my terms. 2 days later, they sat in David's office. Emily's lawyer, Karen Wells, a poised woman with a skeptical frown, read the postnup, her expression darkening. This is draconian, she said, tossing the papers down. No alimony, no claim to the house or business, and these restrictions? It's borderline coercive. Emily, pale but resolute, raised her chin. I'll sign. He's trying to scare me, but I'm not backing down. Sophie, arms crossed, glared at Michael. This is disgusting, Dad. You're humiliating her. Michael met Sophie's eyes, his voice calm but cutting. Your mother's free to do what she wants. You said love isn't about money, right? So she won't mind paying her own way. Nick's wealthy, bet he'll cover her dates. Emily signed, her pen strokes defiant. Sophie fumed, but Michael felt a strange calm. The game had begun, and he held the board. Michael Reed left David Lang's office with a signed postnuptial agreement tucked into his briefcase, a quiet victory humming in his veins. The Seattle skyline loomed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his downtown office, a gray drizzle smudging the view of Elliott Bay. At 45, Michael had built Reed Tech into a cybersecurity juggernaut, but the betrayal from Emily and Sophie had cracked something deeper than his business acumen, his trust. He wasn't the type to wallow. His father, Thomas, an ex-Marine, had drilled into him, control the battlefield or lose the war. Michael was ready to fight. Back home, the Madison Park house felt like a stage set for a play he no longer recognized. Emily moved through it with forced normalcy, planning her first date with Nick Clayton, the slick restaurateur who charmed her at his Pike Street bistro. Sophie, meanwhile, flaunted her confidence, texting friends about her mother's glow-up. Michael overheard her in the living room, giggling, Mom's going to kill it with Nick. Dad's too boring to keep up. The words stung, but Michael buried the hurt, his reservist training kicking in. Stay calm, strike smart. He devised a plan, one that would hit Emily and Sophie where it hurt most, their pride. Nick Clayton wasn't just a charming restaurateur, he was a father. His daughter, Kate, 22, was a graphic designer with a sharp wit and a rebellious streak. Michael had met her at Clayton's Bistro during a client dinner where she'd rolled her eyes at her father's overly polished charm. "He thinks he's God's gift," she'd muttered to Michael once, pouring him a coffee refill. There was a spark there, a shared disdain for Nick's arrogance. Michael saw an opportunity. He reached out to Kate via a discreet text, half expecting her to brush him off. "Dinner at the Four Seasons next week?" he wrote. "Veterans Gala. I could use a sharp +1. To his surprise, she replied within minutes, "Sure, why not? Dad's been insufferable lately." Michael smiled, a rare flicker of satisfaction. This wasn't just a date, it was a chess move. The gala was a glittering affair, with Seattle's elite mingling under chandeliers. Kate arrived in a sleek black dress, her dark hair swept up, her confidence disarming. At 22, she was Sophie's age but carried herself with a poise that made her stand out. Michael introduced her as his date, ignoring the raised eyebrows from colleagues. They danced, laughed, and traded stories about Nick's ego. Kate was no airhead, she held her own, discussing tech trends and global markets, her ambition matching Michael's. Whispers spread, "Michael reads with Nick Clayton's daughter." By the next morning, the gossip had reached Emily. She confronted him in the kitchen, her face pale, her auburn hair unkempt. "You took Kate Clayton to a gala?" she snapped, hands trembling. Sophie, trailing behind, looked furious. "She's my age, Dad. That's disgusting." Michael shrugged off his jacket, his voice calm but edged. "You wanted an open marriage, Emily. I took a consenting adult to a charity event. You spent the night with Nick, didn't you? Freedom goes both ways." Emily's eyes flashed with hurt. "That's not the same. You're doing this to humiliate me." Michael met her gaze, unyielding. "You humiliated yourself when you signed the post-nup. You wanted to play this game, don't cry when I play better." Sophie stepped forward, her voice sharp. "You're such a hypocrite. You're mad about Mom's thing with Nick, so you go after his daughter? That's low even for you." Michael turned to her, his patience thinning. "You called me old school, Sophie. Said I should date. So I did. Problem?" The room crackled with tension. Emily's voice dropped, almost pleading. "This isn't what I wanted, Michael. Can we just talk about closing this?" Michael leaned against the counter, his expression cold. "You open the door. It stays open until I say otherwise. That's the deal." Sophie's defiance faltered, but she doubled down. "You're just jealous Mom's moving on. You can't handle it." Michael's lips twitched into a humorless smile. "Jealous? No. But since you're so keen on freedom, let's talk about yours. Your car lease ends next month. Tuition's due soon. Credit card bills are piling up. I'm done paying for them." Sophie's jaw dropped. "What? You can't do that. I'm your daughter." Michael's eyes were steel. "You're an adult who thought it was fine to mock me while cheering your mother's affair. Actions have consequences, Sophie. Find a job." Emily grabbed Sophie's arm, her voice shaking. "Michael, she's still in college. You can't cut her off like this." He shrugged, unyielding. "She's 21. She wants to play grown-up games, she can pay grown-up prices. You both wanted this new world. Welcome to it." The next week, Michael doubled down. He met Kate again, this time for coffee at a trendy Capitol Hill cafe. She was candid, her green eyes sharp. "Dad's pissed about us," she said, stirring her latte. "He thinks you're using me to get back at him." Michael raised a brow. "And what do you think?" Kate smirked. "I think he's a hypocrite. He's been chasing your wife for months. I'm here because I like you, not to settle his score." Their conversation flowed effortlessly, art, ambition, the chaos of their intertwined families. Michael found himself relaxing, a rare sensation. Kate wasn't just a pawn, she was a partner in this strange rebellion. Meanwhile, Sophie struggled. Her leased BMW was repossessed after she missed a payment, and she took a barista job at a local Starbucks, her Instagram posts shifting from designer bags to exhausted selfies. She texted Michael once, furious, "You're ruining my life." He didn't respond. Emily, meanwhile, clung to her fling with Nick, but cracks were forming. At a dinner Michael hosted for clients at Clayton's Bistro, he caught Nick flirting with a waitress, Emily nowhere in sight. Michael filed the observation away, his mind already spinning new moves. He invited Kate to another event, a tech conference where he was a keynote speaker. Her presence turned heads and the gossip mill churned, Michael Reed's moving on, and with Nick Clayton's daughter, no less. Back home, Sophie cornered him in the driveway, her face flushed from a shift at Starbucks. "You're destroying Mom," she said, voice trembling. "She cries every night because you're parading around with Kate. Just stop, Dad. Close the marriage. Let's go back to normal." Michael unlocked his car, his tone icy. "Normal died the day you two ambushed me in the kitchen. You wanted freedom, Sophie. You got it. Now deal with it. He drove off, leaving her standing in the rain, her ponytail limp, her defiance crumbling. That night, Michael sat in his home office, the post-nup on his desk. Emily's signature stared back at him, a reminder of her choice. His phone buzzed, a text from Kate. Dinner tomorrow? My place. I'm cooking. He smiled, a flicker of warmth cutting through the cold. Emily and Sophie had underestimated him, but the game was far from over. He'd agreed to their rules, but he'd rewrite the outcome. The Seattle autumn arrived with a damp chill, gray clouds smothering the city's skyline. Michael Reed, now a month into his calculated counterstrike, felt the weight of his choices settling in. His waterfront home in Madison Park, once a sanctuary, had become a battleground of silence and glares. Emily, his wife of 20 years, and their daughter Sophie were unraveling under the pressure of his post-nuptial agreement, but Michael's resolve held firm. He wasn't just playing defense anymore, he was reshaping the game. At Reed Tech, Michael buried himself in work, securing a new contract with a Silicon Valley giant. The office, with its sleek glass walls and humming servers, was his fortress, a place where he controlled every variable. But at home, the tension was palpable. Emily had started going out with Nick Clayton, the charming restaurateur, her face glowing with a forced confidence. Sophie, meanwhile, was struggling. Her leased BMW had been repossessed, and her credit card bills were piling up. Michael's decision to cut her off financially had hit hard. She'd taken a barista job at a Capitol Hill cafe, her pride bruised but her defiance intact. One evening, Michael returned home to find Sophie pacing the kitchen, her phone clutched tightly. "Dad, this is ridiculous," she snapped, her voice sharp with frustration. "I can't live like this. I'm working 30 hours a week and I'm still drowning in bills. You can't just cut me off like I'm nothing." Michael set his keys on the counter, his expression unyielding. "You're not nothing, Sophie, but you're an adult. You wanted to side with your mother's plan to upend our family? Fine. Now you deal with the consequences." Sophie's eyes flashed. "You're punishing me for supporting Mom? That's so unfair. You're acting like some cold-hearted jerk." Michael leaned against the counter, his reservist training keeping his voice steady. "You called me old school, said I needed to get with the times. Well, here's the modern world, Sophie. Actions have costs. Figure it out." She stormed out, slamming the door, her footsteps echoing down the driveway. Michael exhaled, a flicker of guilt brushing against his resolve, but he pushed it aside. This was about principle, not sentiment. The next morning, Emily cornered him in the living room, her face pale and her auburn hair disheveled. "Michael, we need to talk," she said, her voice trembling but firm. "This open marriage was a mistake. I want to close it. Now." Michael raised an eyebrow, folding his arms. "A mistake? You seemed pretty sure when you signed the post-nup. What changed?" Emily's eyes darted away, her hands twisting together. "Nick, he's not who I thought. He's been seeing other women. He canceled our last 2 dates, and she stopped, swallowing hard. I thought he cared, but he's just a player. I don't want this anymore. Can we go back?" Michael's jaw tightened, but his voice remained calm, almost clinical. "Go back? You asked for freedom, Emily. You got it. The post-nup says we both have to agree to close the marriage, and I don't agree." Emily's face crumpled, tears welling. "You're punishing me. This isn't about love or fairness, it's about control. You're humiliating me." "You humiliated yourself," Michael said, his tone cutting. "You and Sophie thought you could rewrite our life without consequences. You were wrong." Emily sank onto the couch, her voice breaking. "I'm begging you, Michael. I can't do this. Seeing you with Kate, it's killing me. She's Sophie's age, for God's sake." Michael's relationship with Kate Clayton, Nick's 22-year-old daughter, had started as a calculated move to mirror Emily's betrayal. But something unexpected had grown. Kate wasn't just a pawn, she was sharp, ambitious, and unafraid to call Michael out. Their dates at art galleries, quiet bistros, or the Veterans Gala at the Four Seasons had sparked a genuine connection. She listened when he spoke about his reservist days, about the weight of leading men in high-stakes missions. She didn't judge, and that vulnerability stirred something in Michael he hadn't felt in years. "Kate's not the issue," Michael said, turning away. "You wanted this game, Emily. We're playing it." Emily's voice rose, desperate. "I'm done with Nick. I'm done with all of it. Please, let's fix this." Michael paused at the stairs, his back to her. "You don't get to decide when it's over. Not anymore." He walked upstairs, leaving her sobbing in the living room. The next week, Michael met Kate at her Capitol Hill loft, a cozy space filled with her graphic design sketches. Over takeout sushi, she leaned back, her dark eyes studying him. "You're different lately," she said. "More intense. Everything okay?" Michael set down his chopsticks, exhaling. "It's complicated. Emily's trying to back out of the open marriage. Sophie's furious about her bills. They're feeling the squeeze. Kate nodded, thoughtful. And you? Are you okay with all this? I mean, it started as a jab at my dad, right? But it feels real now. Michael met her gaze, a rare softness in his eyes. It is real. I didn't expect it, but you're not just a move in this game. You're you. Kate smiled, a mix of relief and warmth. Good. Because I'm not here to play games either. Their conversation was interrupted by a text from Sophie. Mom's sick. Like, really sick. You need to talk to her. Michael frowned, his gut twisting. He ignored the message, but it lingered like a shadow. Days later, Emily confronted him again, this time in the driveway as he returned from work. Her face was gaunt, her eyes red-rimmed. I went to the doctor, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I caught something from Nick. An infection. It's treatable, but it's humiliating, Michael. I hope you're happy. Michael's chest tightened, a pang of pity quickly smothered by his anger. Happy? No. This is what you chose, Emily. You jumped into bed with a guy you barely knew. Did you think there'd be no consequences? Tears streamed down her face, but she stood her ground. I get it. I messed up. But you're not innocent either, parading around with Kate. You're making a fool of me in front of everyone. You made a fool of yourself, Michael said, his voice cold. I'm just living by the rules you wanted. Emily's shoulders slumped and she turned away, her voice breaking. You're not the man I married. Michael watched her walk back to the house, a flicker of regret stirring. But he buried it, focusing on the plan. He wasn't done yet. At the office, David Lang, his lawyer, called with an update. Emily's lawyer reached out. She's desperate to renegotiate the post-nup. Says it's unfair. I told her it's ironclad, but she's not giving up. Let her try, Michael said, staring out at the Seattle skyline. She signed it. She lives with it. That night, Sophie showed up unannounced, banging on the front door. Michael opened it to find her furious, her barista apron still tied on. Mom's falling apart, Dad. She's sick, she's broke, and you're just, what? Toying with us? This isn't you. Michael crossed his arms, his voice low. You didn't care about me when you cheered her on with Nick. You wanted modern? This is modern. Handle your own problems. Sophie's face twisted with anger and tears. You're going to regret this. Mom's a wreck and I'm barely surviving. You're destroying us. You destroyed yourselves, Michael said, shutting the door. The slam echoed, final and heavy. As he stood in the quiet house, Michael's phone buzzed with a text from Kate. Dinner tomorrow? I have a surprise. He smiled faintly, a spark of warmth cutting through the cold. Emily and Sophie were breaking, but Michael was already looking ahead to Kate, to a future he hadn't planned but was starting to want. Seattle's winter rain battered the city, turning the streets into a mirror of gray. Michael Reed, now 46, stood at a crossroads. His calculated revenge against Emily and Sophie had unfolded as planned, but the cost was becoming clearer. His Madison Park home, once alive with family laughter, was a hollow shell of tension. Emily, his wife of 20 years, was a shadow of herself, her health and spirit crumbling. Sophie, their 21-year-old daughter, was scraping by, her defiance eroded by the grind of reality. Yet Michael's focus was shifting to Kate Clayton, the unexpected light in his storm. At Reed Tech, Michael's cybersecurity empire thrived, landing a government contract that cemented his reputation. But his personal life was a battlefield. Emily's infection, contracted from her fling with Nick Clayton, had shaken her. She'd stopped going out, her once vibrant auburn hair now dull, her frame gone. Sophie, meanwhile, juggled her barista job and college, her leased BMW long gone, her credit card debt a constant weight. Michael's decision to cut her off had forced her to grow up fast, but her resentment burned hot. One rainy November evening, Michael met Kate at her Capitol Hill loft. The space, cluttered with her graphic design sketches and warm with fairy lights, felt like an escape. Over red wine and jazz, Kate dropped a bombshell. Michael, she said, her dark eyes searching his, I'm pregnant. 8 weeks. It's yours. Michael froze, his glass halfway to his lips. A swirl of emotions hit: shock, fear, a flicker of joy. Fatherhood again at 46 with a woman he'd initially pursued to spite Nick. You're sure? He asked, his voice steady despite the chaos in his chest. Kate nodded, her expression resolute. I am. I didn't plan this, but I want to keep it. I'm ready if you are. Michael set his glass down, his reservist training kicking in. Assess, decide, act. He thought of Sophie, of the mistakes he'd made as a father, of the bitterness that had poisoned his family. This was a chance to do it right. All right, he said, a faint smile breaking through. We'll figure it out. Together. Kate exhaled, relief softening her face. Thank you. I know it's messy, but I'm not here for revenge anymore. It's real. Michael leaned forward, kissing her forehead. Let's focus on that. Not Nick, not Emily. Just us and the baby. But the past wouldn't let go. The next morning, Michael returned home to find Emily waiting in the living room, her eyes bloodshot, her hands trembling. "Michael, we need to talk," she said, her voice raw. "I'm done with this open marriage. I'm done with everything. I want a divorce." Michael crossed his arms, leaning against the doorway. "You know what that means. The postnup. You walk away with nothing, no house, no alimony, no stake in Reed Tech." Emily nodded, her face weary. "I know, but I can't live like this, watching you with Kate, knowing I ruined us. I just want out." For a moment, Michael saw the Emily he'd married, young, full of life, laughing at his bad jokes. A pang of sadness hit, but he buried it. "We'll talk to the lawyers," he said coolly. "But you made this bed, Emily." She flinched, tears spilling. "I get it. I betrayed you. But you're not innocent, Michael. Dating Nick's daughter? Parading her at events? You're twisting the knife." Michael's jaw tightened. "You wanted freedom. I gave it to you. Don't complain about the cost." Emily sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. "I hate you," she whispered, but there was no venom, only defeat. Michael turned and left, the echo of her words lingering. Sophie, meanwhile, was spiraling. She cornered Michael in the driveway a week later, her barista apron crumpled, her face flushed with anger. "Mom's falling apart, Dad. She's sick, she's broke, and you're out there playing house with Kate? You're destroying her." Michael faced her, his voice cold. "Your mother destroyed herself. And you? You cheered her on, Sophie. You called me a dinosaur, said I needed to get with the times. Well, here we are." Sophie's eyes welled up. "I was wrong, okay? I didn't know it'd end like this. Mom's on meds, she barely eats, and I'm working my ass off to pay my loans. You've made your point, now stop." Michael stepped closer, his gaze unyielding. "You wanted to rewrite our family. You don't get to cry foul when it backfires. You're an adult. Act like it." Sophie's voice broke. "You're my dad. You're supposed to help me, not punish me." "You chose your side," Michael said, turning away. "Live with it." He drove to Kate's loft, her warmth a stark contrast to the chaos at home. Over coffee, she shared her surprise. She'd landed a freelance design contract with a major tech firm. "It's big," she said, grinning. "Enough to support me and the baby, whatever happens." Michael felt a surge of pride. Kate wasn't just a rebound, she was building her own path. "You're incredible," he said, squeezing her hand. "We'll make this work." But the weight of Emily's decline gnawed at him. A week later, he got a call from David Lang, his lawyer. "Emily's lawyer says she's not fighting the divorce terms," David said. "She's moving to her parents' place in Portland. But, Mike, she's in bad shape. Physically, mentally. You sure about this?" Michael stared out his office window, the Space Needle blurred by rain. "She chose this, David. I'm not her savior anymore." That night, Sophie texted again, "Mom's in the hospital. Infection's worse. Please, Dad, talk to her." Michael hesitated, his thumb hovering over the reply button. He thought of Kate, of the baby, of the new life waiting. Then he typed, "Call her parents." "I'm done." The next day, Michael met Kate at a prenatal appointment, the ultrasound showing a tiny heartbeat. Kate smiled, squeezing his hand. "It's real now," she whispered. Michael nodded, a mix of hope and guilt swirling in his chest. He was building something new, but the wreckage of his old life loomed large. At home, Emily was packing. Michael found her in their bedroom, folding clothes into a suitcase. She looked up, her eyes hollow. "I'm leaving tomorrow," she said quietly. I'm sorry, Michael. For everything." Michael stood in the doorway, his voice flat. "You wanted freedom. You got it. Good luck, Emily." She nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek, and resumed packing. Michael walked away, the sound of her quiet sobs fading behind him. He didn't look back. Seattle's spring of 2026 brought a tentative warmth, but for Michael Reed, the chill of his past lingered. At 46, he stood at the helm of Reed Tech, his cybersecurity empire now a titan in the industry. His Madison Park home, once a battleground of betrayal, was quiet, too quiet. Emily, his ex-wife, had left for her parents' home in Portland, her health and spirit broken. Sophie, their 21-year-old daughter, was carving out a life of her own, hardened by the consequences of her choices. Michael, meanwhile, was building a new future with Kate Clayton and their unborn child, but the weight of his revenge pressed heavily on his conscience. The divorce had been finalized swiftly. Emily, defeated by the ironclad post-nuptial agreement, walked away with nothing, no share of the house, no alimony, no stake in Reed Tech. She'd signed the papers without a fight, her signature a quiet surrender. Michael had instructed his lawyer, David Lang, to handle it with cold efficiency, and David delivered. Emily's departure left the house feeling like a museum, its rooms echoing with memories of a life that no longer existed. Michael's relationship with Kate had deepened into something real. What began as a calculated move to spite Nick Clayton, Emily's former lover, had grown into genuine affection. Kate, now 23, was thriving as a freelance graphic designer, her recent contract with a tech giant boosting her confidence. Her Capitol Hill loft, with its warm lighting and scattered sketches, had become Michael's refuge. One evening, as they planned for their baby's arrival, Kate looked at him, her dark eyes serious. "You're carrying something heavy, Michael. You don't talk about Emily or Sophie much, but I see it in you. Are you okay?" Michael sipped his coffee, the weight of her words settling in. "I'm fine," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "They made their choices. I made mine." Kate reached for his hand. "I get it, but you're going to be a dad again. Maybe it's time to let some of that anger go." Her words lingered. Michael wanted to move forward, but the past clung like damp Seattle fog. Sophie, now working full-time at a Capitol Hill cafe, had stopped texting him. He'd heard through mutual friends that she'd moved into a cramped apartment, scraping by to pay her college loans. Her defiance had faded into a grudging acceptance of responsibility, but the rift between them was vast. Michael felt a flicker of pride. She was learning to stand on her own, but it was tempered by the sting of their estrangement. Emily's fate was bleaker. In late March, Michael received a call from her father, Richard, a retired accountant with a voice heavy with grief. "Michael," he said, pausing to steady himself, "Emily passed away last night. The infection she got from that man, Nick. It led to complications. She was in and out of the hospital for months. Last night, she just didn't wake up." Michael stood in his office, the Space Needle framed against a gray sky. His throat tightened, a rush of emotions, pity, guilt, regret, colliding. "I'm sorry, Richard," he managed, his voice low. "I didn't know it was that bad." Richard sighed, weary. "She was broken, Michael. Not just her body, her spirit. She regretted everything. I thought you should know." The call ended, and Michael stared at his phone, the screen blurring. He thought of Emily at 21, radiant on their wedding day, her laughter filling a sunlit vineyard. Then he thought of her final months, gaunt, defeated, alone. A pang of guilt hit, sharp and unyielding. Had his revenge pushed her too far? He shook his head, shoving the thought away. She'd chosen Nick, chosen to break their vows. The consequences were hers. At home, Michael found Kate in the nursery they'd started preparing, painting a wall a soft blue. Their son, due in a few months, would be named Ethan. Kate turned, paint smudged on her cheek, and smiled. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Michael exhaled, setting his keys down. "Emily's gone," he said simply. "Complications from her illness." Kate's smile faded, her eyes softening. "Oh, Michael. I'm sorry. Are you okay?" He nodded, but his chest felt heavy. "I don't know. Part of me feels responsible. But she made her choices." Kate stepped closer, resting a hand on his arm. "You didn't make her sick. You didn't force her to do anything. You're not the villain here." Michael pulled her into a hug, grateful for her clarity. "I just want to do this right," he murmured. "With you. With Ethan." "You will," Kate said, her voice firm. "We will." Weeks later, Michael proposed to Kate during a quiet dinner at a Whidbey Island Inn, the place he'd once imagined taking Emily for their anniversary. Kate accepted, her eyes shining, and they signed a prenup, Michael's nod to his father's lessons about protecting what mattered. The ceremony was small, just close friends, held on a cliff overlooking Puget Sound. Michael felt a lightness he hadn't known in years, but Emily's shadow lingered. Sophie, meanwhile, was rebuilding. Michael learned she'd taken a second job, tutoring high school students, and was slowly paying off her loans. One afternoon, curiosity drew him to her cafe. He stood outside, watching through the window as Sophie hustled behind the counter, her face focused but not unhappy. She didn't see him, and he didn't approach. Instead, he left, a faint pride stirring. She was finding her way even if they'd never reconcile. By 2030, Michael and Kate were settled in a new home, a modern craftsman in Queen, and filled with Ethan's laughter. At 4, he was a whirlwind of energy, his dark curls and bright eyes a blend of his parents. Michael had scaled back at Reed Tech, delegating to focus on fatherhood. He was determined to be present this time to avoid the mistakes he'd made with Sophie. One Sunday morning, as Ethan colored a picture of a rocket ship, Michael sat beside him, the past a distant hum. Kate was outside, sipping coffee in the spring sunlight. The phone rang, startling him. It was Richard again. "Michael," he said, his voice softer now, "I just wanted to say. Emily kept a letter for you. I found it after she passed. Can I send it?" Michael hesitated, then agreed. Days later, the letter arrived, Emily's handwriting shaky but familiar. "Michael, I'm sorry. I broke us. I thought I wanted freedom, but I lost everything that mattered. I hope you're happy with Kate. Be a good father to your new child. I know you can be. Michael folded the letter, his throat tight. He thought of Emily's regrets, Sophie's resilience, his own hardened heart. Revenge had been cold, surgical, but it hadn't healed him. Ethan's laughter pulled him back, a reminder of the life he'd chosen. He ruffled his son's hair, forcing a smile. Show me that rocket, buddy. The past was done. Emily and Sophie had faced their consequences, and Michael had found redemption in a new beginning. But as he looked at Ethan, he knew some wounds would never fully heal. Actions had costs for everyone,